So, if we haven't met, I'm Joyce Duffala. I'm the assistant minister here, and the topic today is Om Mani Padme Hum. I want to begin this time of thinking about this wonderful Sanskrit phrase by expressing gratitude for this community of people of a wide range of viewpoints, for our philosophy that can allow us all to feel at home in it, and for our founder, Ernest Holmes. He told the people that he knew at the end of his life that were already in this movement there, the late 50s, that he wanted this movement to always be open at the top. Meaning not stuck on something he might have said, but as the world changes, as human consciousness evolves, that it would begin to look very different from his time. And indeed, 2 generations later, here we are chanting Om Mani Padme Hum, which I think he secretly did. Seriously. The other thing I'm very grateful to Holmes for is this statement. It's probably familiar to you. I believe in the direct revelation of truth through our intuitive and spiritual nature, and that any person may become a revealer of truth who lives in close contact with the indwelling God. So there it is, an official invitation to go with your own intuitive spiritual sense of the right understanding of the Divine One, of the right practice for you. And we can certainly see how it plays out in our community here. And we can see it in our theme this year, where we've been looking at different spiritual practices every month. If you are like me, some of these practices you may have liked, and some maybe you weren't so sure about, and some maybe you weren't so sure about, but you gave them a try, and gosh, they were kind of useful. I myself am amazed that I actually found a form of journaling that works for me. It has very big words and pictures, but I do it. So as we begin today, I do want you to consider that whatever your spiritual viewpoint is, including a healthy sense of skepticism, that you do consider how you're enriched by what happens here, as well as how you enrich our community and our philosophy, what you're bringing to the evolution of this movement. And so here we are in this month of looking at chanting, and so far, we've noticed that chanting certainly relaxes and energizes the body. It calms the mind, it focuses the mind, it takes our attention off of negativity, and thereby it opens a way for us to experience our contact with the Divine One. A good friend of mine said that she really likes to chant, but she likes to chant things in English. She likes to be able to understand the words that she's chanting. And, I agree, it's good to do that. And yet, I'm discovering that the richness in chanting Sanskrit, as we were today, this ancient language from India. First of all, I just love the way it feels in the mouth. I love all those vowels. And secondly, when you begin to study it a bit, it turns out that there's 50 sounds in Sanskrit in the language, and they each one activate not only an energy point in our body, but an energy point in the universe, in the universal body. So there's a way in which our chanting in Sanskrit is attuning us with universal divine energy. Now, I'm a science and mind minister, so I'm not majorly into chakras, but I do get that this is similar to what Holmes is talking about as as a way to help us increase our awareness of our oneness with God, that this local experience is actually one with a huge, infinite, divine experience. So it makes sense to me that there would be a spiritual technology to get our local field in sync with the divine, the universal field. In addition to how good it is and how good it feels in the body, I'm very moved by the sentiments that are expressed in the chants. We did one recently. It's actually on the spiritual support CD, where the English translation is "Lead me from the unreal to the real, from darkness to the light, from death to immortality." And even though this comes out of Hinduism, I recognize it as a Science of Mind student, that desire to leave behind the negative as I put my attention on divine perfection. Or as I remember that I'm not limited by time, by space, by this body, but indeed I am one with the infinite, eternal, all that is. So here's the chant we're considering today. All together now? The reason I put it up there is because it's so darn pretty, isn't it? If you're in front, you'll see there's actually a picture of this plaque. And Om Mani Padme Hum has 6 syllables. Om is on the right, on your left, and Hum is the last one on the right. It's 4 words, Om Mani Padme Hum. So as foreign as it might seem to be chanting these words to some of us, I've discovered in preparing this talk that it's actually not so different to what we do in Science of Mind. That in Science of Mind, we have our spiritual technology known as affirmative prayer or spiritual mind treatment, and there's a way in which they're very similar. So, putting our attention on Om Mani Padme Hum for a minute, I want to refer you to a great YouTube video. The Dalai Lama is talking about what this means. And his basic point is that this chant is a technique, a technology that leads us from impurity to purity. Now, as a Science of Mind kid, I don't usually use those words, purity, impurity. But I'm reminded of how Holmes told us, if we're experiencing a problem, to turn away from the condition. So, for example, if I'm having a relationship that has discord in it, rather than focusing on the drama and what's wrong and he said, she said, to turn away, take my attention away from the exact situation and put my attention on my highest thought of the highest reality, the divine one. And to remember that that one is a being of infinite harmony and it's everywhere. And then I bring that attention into the specific thinking about the condition, and wouldn't you know it, that viewpoint starts to change my experience into one of more harmony. So I see that the process is the same, whether we're chanting Om Mani Padme Hum or whether we're doing something like an affirmative prayer to help us change our mind. We are bringing our attention from this temporary changing world to the eternal changeless one, from impure to pure. So, this chant, Om Mani Padme Hum, is the chant that is done most frequently in the world, particularly among Tibetan Buddhists. Another name for that practice is Vajrayana Buddhism. And synchronistically, exactly 1 year ago today, I had the good fortune to go on a trip with fellow sojourners from our center to Bhutan a country where there's a serious, pervasive practice of Vajrayana Buddhism. Bhutan is in the Himalayas. It's a small country nestled between India and China, sharing borders with Nepal and Tibet. And we were led on the trip, not by this little 11-year-old nun, but rather we were led, our tour guide was Jim Kramer, and we had a local Buddhist guide who was explaining things in the temples to us in his language, and his religious language. And then Reverend Kim was sort of helping to translate it into science of mind for us. One of the reasons I was remembering Bhutan as I was preparing this talk is that Om Mani Padme Hum is happening there 24/7. People are chanting it. It's on prayer flags being carried to the rest of the world. It's on prayer wheels of different sizes, small ones and large ones, which people spin to send the prayer out. And so it is that this chant, because when it's chanted, it is known to bring benefit not just to oneself, but to all humankind. There's a way in which those people in the Himalayas, the Bhutanese, with their practice 24/7 of saying Om Mani Padme Hum, are blessing you all the time. It's like they're keeping high watch for the human race, constantly sending out this compassionate prayer to all of us. By the way, if you want to take in a little Bhutanese energy, you can see the prayer flags that are in the social hall above the snack bar. Those came from a 16th century temple and were actually blessed for us by a lama. Now, one thing I discovered in reading our book of the month, which is behind the plant, the book of the month is Mantra Meditation by Thomas Ashley Farrand. And I hadn't realized this, but different chants in Sanskrit have different intentions. So if you're interested in increasing abundance in your life, you chant a particular chant. If you want more love in your life, you chant something else. And when I read that, I thought, oh, is this kind of superstitious mumbo jumbo? I just say this thing a bunch of times and my life changes. And then it occurred to me that, we're not so different. When we want our life to change, we set our intention in the form of an affirmative prayer, a spiritual mind treatment. And as a matter of fact, as I looked into this further, I noticed a kind of a parallel between Om Mani Padme Hum and our form of prayer. So just kind of a quick reminder of our form of prayer, affirmative prayer or spiritual mind treatment. It's got 5 steps. In the first one, we bring to mind every thought we can think about the nature to us of the Divine One. We really dwell. We take our attention off of condition and we dwell in what the eternal means to us. And then we move our attention to ourselves and remember that we're actually one with this amazing infinite eternal thing, like the wave is part of the ocean. And then we start to think about this thing that was bothering us, and we realize, oh my gosh, if God's everywhere and I'm part of God, then actually there must be good happening in this situation. At which point we can simply give thanks for that truth. And in the 5th step, we just let it be. Hands off, we release it. Typically, we say, and so it is. And it's always in that 3rd step where our language changes, whether we're treating for abundance or for love or whatever. Now, in the book of the month, the author says that the specific intention of Om Mani Padme Hum is to unite heart and mind. Isn't that wonderful? Have you been in situations where the two are not balanced? Maybe there's too much thinking, too much mind, reference to policies and procedures, not enough compassion. Or maybe there's a situation you've been in where there's too much feeling, not enough clarity of thought. Wouldn't it be wonderful to meet all situations with a balance of mind and heart? So here we are with something that is designed to do this for us, Om Mani Padme Hum, and the author translates it as the jewel of consciousness has reached the heart's lotus. The jewel of consciousness has reached the heart's lotus. To me, that reads like an affirmation, like something you might see in one of our third steps of our prayer. And I want to continue the analogy just a little bit. So let's think again. What do we do in our first step? We think about God. Om, very big word, multifaceted meanings. It's said to be the sound that was made at the moment of creation. Also said to be the voice of God. Sometimes said to be God itself. And as we start to get more familiar with this chant and this process of chanting Sanskrit today, I want to invite us together to say Om 10 times. And as we're doing it, I invite you to bring to mind your own understanding of what the Divine One is. Om. Om. Om Mani. Mani means jewel, and that is understood to mean the jewel of consciousness. Consciousness is a word that you'll hear used a lot around our tradition, and it refers to awareness. It refers to mind. As Holmes said, there's no such thing as your mind, my mind, and God's mind. There's only mind in which we all live and move and have our being. So to me, that is what Mani is. So I invite us now to say the two words together 10 times, bringing to mind the fact or what you believe about and what you experience of the Divine One, and how you know yourself to be one of it, one in it, with it. Om Mani, 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 Mani, Om Mani. All right. So back to the idea of fitting this into treatment. We have the idea of the great consciousness and our place in it. And in our prayer, this would be the time where we would then talk about our specific intention, but in this case, the whole mantra is carrying the intention, and so that can bring us to our fourth step of heartfelt gratitude. Om Mani Padme. Padme literally means the heart's lotus. And not only does it mean that, the sounds of Padme literally resonate this chakra area. So now we have the infinite idea of Om, the idea of our consciousness, our jewel of our consciousness being one with it and with the lotus of the heart. Om Mani Padme. Shall we say that together 10 times? Om Mani Padme, 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 Mani Padme, Om Mani Padme, Om Mani Padme, Om Mani Padme. Last thing, Hum. Hum is a kind of an exclamation point. It brings everything together. It's kind of like the way we say, and so it is. So that is the entire meaning, Om Mani Padme Hum. And in our science of mind way of describing things, then it is referring to infinite consciousness, our oneness with it, and how our mind and our heart are one. And so it is. So before we chant it one more time, I bring you this saying that comes from Asia. When the light of the heart is united with the power of the mind, anything is possible. When the light of the heart is united with the power of the mind, anything is possible. So I invite you for the next 30 seconds as you chant this with me to know that truth not just for yourself, but for all of humankind and beyond for all beings. Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. And so recognizing that this field we've created together lives and moves and has its being in that one divine one, that one power that no words can describe, that one infinite one, that source of all life, that source of who we are, that has taken form in creation as us. We are the hands and feet, the voice, the very body of God, separately and together. And so as we continue our spiritual journey together, as we continue our spiritual practice together, our spiritual study as individuals and collectively as a community, I know absolutely that each one is indeed experiencing more and more good, bringing light and love into his or her own life, every situation, as well as bringing more light, more love, more peace, more joy to all beings. And for this, I am truly grateful, and so it is.